Philadelphia Eagles get the win over the Green Bay Packers. It was 22-10. The Eagles move on to host the winner of tomorrow's game.
Yeah.
Tonight's game, sorry. Vikings-Rams. So Eagles as the 2 seed. Weird start, man. A fumble on the opening kickoff by Keyshawn Nixon.
Debatable. Well, no, not debatable. Fumble. Debatable recovery.
It was a real fumble.
Yeah.
But a debatable
not
recovery.
Debatable fumble, but a debatable recovery.
I'm sorry, yeah, not debatable fumble. Yeah, just go ahead.
Yeah.
Explain what happened.
Well, he fumbled the ball, and then there was a debatable recovery.
There it is. That's exactly what happened. What did you think there? I thought they were going to overturn it, give it back to Green Bay.
I did think, that Green Bay probably should have had that ball back. I think it was a bad call. There was some weird officiating. I mean, it's shocking. The NFL had some weird officiating, but that didn't seem like a correct decision to me. And that was a huge, right off the gate. The entire first half couldn't have gone much worse for Green Bay, but immediately you give Green Bay likes to do this, right? In a world where the general established pattern of behavior is you take the ball in the second half if you can, you defer. Green Bay likes having the ball for the first drive all the time. This is one of the things they do. And generally it's they take the ball, you march down the field, you score, and now you've put them under pressure, right? What's the worst thing that can happen is immediately you cough it up in your own red zone, essentially. Instead of I'm taking the ball, I'm going to establish the pattern of this game, we're going to, make a statement. It's actually, instead of that, the very first play, you just gave them possession and you did it in the red zone so that they're probably going to score very quickly.
We'll talk about Pittsburgh because Pittsburgh did it too, right? They took the ball and then got wrecked in the first half. And it's Baltimore's getting the ball in the second half.
It's terrible when that happens.
Pittsburgh did it for a reason. We'll talk about it when we get there. But how badly they had started all their playoff games. So they probably wanted this psychological
And
aspect.
I do get it. This, if it is a statement, if you're able to take the ball, march down the field, put up a touchdown, and suddenly you're wow, that's a real statement of intent. But if it doesn't go the way you want it to go, it's really bad because they're getting the ball in the second half as well, and you didn't make your statement.
Yeah, I'm always team defer. I think there might be, and look, how poorly the Eagles have started games this year. Sometimes there could be something to, hey, this team's bad in the first quarter. Let's take advantage of that, and if we want to have extra possessions, let's do it in the first half instead of the second half. However, it works the other way too, where the Eagles have been a great second half team, and so you do want to give them the extra possession in the second half. Ultimately, you're probably going to get the same number of possessions. But if it's uneven, I would rather it be uneven in the second half, not the first half, right? I'd rather have the extra possession when I understand the game flow and I know what's going on. That's why teams defer. And as always, it's still wild to me that the NFL did not allow you to defer until, 2007 or 2008, whatever that year was. Crazy. But 22-10. So they fumble, debatable recovery, but right off the bat, Jalen Hurts throws a quick touchdown. So the Eagles are up 7-0. Pretty much right off the bat, Jalen Hurts, we're worried about his rust and everything. That first touchdown, he's sitting in the pocket for about 7 seconds, finds Jahan Dotson wide open in the end zone for 11 yards. But after that, it was very much a defensive struggle.
Yeah, so in the first couple of minutes, you get the debatable turnover, which is huge because obviously it sets Philadelphia up in the red zone. They get a touchdown off the back of that. The next thing that happens is Green Bay goes 3 and out. And we're a couple of minutes into this game, and it almost literally couldn't have started worse for this team. They've coughed up possession immediately. The other team scored a touchdown off the back of that possession, and then you go 3 and out, and they have the ball back. It's this is a catastrophe for an underdog team that needs to have some things go their way if they want to win. Now, it then sort of settled down and became this defensive struggle, and more points were not racked up, but. And this is the first half, I think, was kind of a disaster for Green Bay, with the exception of the fact that the score didn't get away from them. Things had gone really badly for them, and they were only down 10.
Yeah. That was, similar to the Denver game, right? You're not in control of this game whatsoever, but you're within striking distance at least. One of the biggest stories was Elgton Jenkins, maybe the best offensive lineman for the Packers, goes down early after just a handful of snaps. Nolan Smith just popped him on a pull. And Nolan Smith, incredible power taking on pullers in the run game is one of my notes from
As a tiny guy.
Yes, which is why I loved him. As 239 pounds, whatever he was, 240 pounds, the fact that he took on pullers the way he did. So he essentially injures Elgton Jenkins.
Yeah.
early in the game, and they have to put in Kadeem Telfort and Travis Glover eventually after Telfort gets benched after
Right.
3 penalties.
They were down to their third string left guard.
Yeah, so the Packers' offensive line had some serious issues in this game, in part because the guards in particular, when you're going up against this Eagles team with Milton Williams, Jalen Carter, rushing from the interior, just not great.
Yeah, it's fun. You had that play, that pulling play, the kind of offensive lineman comes around to kick out that side's edge rusher. You had both ways that can go in this game, and then I think the Buffalo game was the other one where I forget who it was in the Bills game, but he absolutely smushed a dude and kicked him right out of that gap, and it's like, wow, that's some serious power. And then you have this version, which is Nolan Smith actually winning the contact so much that he actually injures Elgton Jenkins, who immediately goes off. It was Jonah Ellis was getting kicked out. I forget who the offensive lineman was for Buffalo, but I think Ellis had his shoulder injured as well. So dominant by the offensive lineman in one game and dominant by the defensive end in the other game, each of which ended up in a shoulder injury for the dude on the receiving end of the hit. But so injuries were pretty big in this game as well. Green Bay were down to their third string guard. They were battered at wide receiver as well. Obviously, Christian Watson a week ago injured his knee in the non-contact thing. Romeo Doubs goes down with another head injury for a guy that's struggled with concussions. Is already wearing the Guardian cap. His head cracks the turf. He has to be helped off and walked into the locker room in between two guys. That didn't look great. So they were down, and then Jaden Reed gets hurt as well. So you're down basically your top 3 wide receivers, and you're down to your third string left guard. Green Bay was getting pretty beat up, and then poor Nakobe Dean goes down with a knee injury that looked pretty bad for Philadelphia as well. So
Dean had been having a great year, but Green Bay, the injuries really mounted. I think you said last night, even if they had pulled this thing off, it's like what would they be able to bring? What would they bring to the table next week? They'd be going to Detroit if they had won with a depleted roster. So those injuries killed them, as did the turnovers. Man, Jordan Love with first run PFF has him with 4 turnover-worthy plays, 3 interceptions. Sounds right. There's dropped interception early. Chucks one up. Darius Slay makes a great play on the ball for a turnover. Then there's a pick right before the half. Zach Bond continues his All-Pro caliber season. Did he make first-team All-Pro? Zach Bond?
I think so.
I forget.
Find out.
But probably should have if he didn't. And so Bond makes another big play. Jordan Love, again, just too many bad decisions in there.
Yeah, but that was another thing where, you almost it could have been a catastrophe. Green Bay was trying to drive and get some points back before halftime and try and rescue what would have been a terrible half for them. Instead, he never sees Zach Bond over the middle. He's trying to actually hit the guy coming in behind him, just doesn't see him. I think because he was sort of hidden by the shallower receiver. You got receiver here, Zach Bond behind him, receiver coming in the other way. He's focusing on the guy behind him. I don't think he sees Bond behind the first option, and he just jumps out, intercepts the ball. So it's you just went from trying to get some points before the half yourself to actually Philadelphia has a shot to get more points before the half. But Green Bay's defense held again. The whole first half was Green Bay screwing up and then sometimes dodging the consequences of that screw up with points.
So at the end of the day, the Eagles' offense was not great.
No.
We got a stat here from Next Gen Stats. Eagles' defense limited Jordan Love to 3 of 11 passing for just 58 yards and 3 picks on 10-plus yard throws. Quinyon Mitchell had one of those interceptions, and the Next Gen Stats had him as nearest defender, 2 catches for 10 yards. I hate the nearest defender thing, but we're using it here anyway. So Quinyon Mitchell continues another really nice rookie season.
Bond did make first-team All-Pro.
He did, yeah. So first-team All-Pro. It was great. You're right. It was more of a great play by Bond than just an awful misread by Love. And I would say the Slay interceptions aren't always bad decisions. The Slay decision wasn't bad. It's one-on-one, throws it down the field. It's just slightly underthrown. And Slay does a great job of reading the receiver, knowing when to look up, and makes the play on the ball, which was outstanding.
I think the Bond thing was it was bad. It's not even a bad decision if you don't see the guy. It's just a mistake. But I think there was a reason he didn't see him. I don't think it was just why didn't you see that guy right in front of you? I think he was hidden by the shallower receiver that would have been basically blocking him.
Plus the running back that Bond was covering falls down and probably changes where he's going to be.
Right.
And,
But I don't think it was just oh, look, you threw the ball right to that linebacker that you never saw and you should have. I think there was reasons for it.
What else? So then, look, the Eagles' offense could not really capitalize on this. So A.J. Brown only one catch for 10 yards. We'll talk about the book in a minute as well on the sideline. Devontae Smith was the leading receiver, 4 catches for 55. Saquon Barkley, the stat line is an interesting one, 25 carries for 119. Now, when they were running out the clock, he took like a 15-yard gain or whatever it was. It could have been a 60-yard touchdown. He just takes a knee while they're up 12 to just end the game. Easily could have just been 60-plus yard touchdown. Would have made the stat line great. But there was a point in this game where I thought Saquon had room and wasn't making guys miss and wasn't. He had some spectacular runs, but he had some also had a few that I thought he could have done a little bit more. So the Eagles' offense ended up with only 22 points off of all those turnovers. I'm not saying it's fully concerning, but it's something we've seen this year where a game where that feels like they should be putting up 35 or 40 points, and they kind of, it's closer than it should have been.
Yeah, I mean, it ends up being like the two outputs on offense were very, very similar, with the exception that Green Bay had 4 turnovers. Like, outside of that, I mean, you're talking about 10 yards difference, less than 10 yards difference in terms of total yards. Green Bay had 1 more first down than Philadelphia did. They were significantly better on third down than Philadelphia was, and that was a big part of the Eagles not capitalizing here, is they couldn't convert third downs generally on offense. So a lot of things, the time of possession was almost identical. Like, you basically had very similar outputs on offense, with the exception being Green Bay turned the ball over 4 times, and you can't do that and expect to win a game like this. At the half, Jalen Hurts had like 39 passing yards on 6 completions. And really, like, you have the very start of the game, they are set up in the red zone on a debatable call, right? Let's say incorrect call, maybe. That's 7 of your points, right? They get one play where they just launch a quick screen to Dallas Goedert, who just stiff arms Valentine for like 25 yards.
Great play by Goedert.
Just insane. Like, he's got, okay, you're going to like lose the initial contact against a 6'6" big tight end, but he like loses for 25 straight yards all the way into the end zone. And they show this clip on the sideline of like Xavier McKinney. Again, this is the thing that you hate, right? They're projecting what they think is happening in this conversation. But the description...
I hate it so much. You don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, the description, I like the description, so I'm willing to go for it this time. The description from the commentary was like, Xavier McKinney was simply asking Valentine to explain what the hell happened on this play. And Valentine, therefore, must have been relaying, well, I went up to tackle him, and I got stiff-armed in the face, and then I continued to get stiff-armed in the face for 25 more yards until he got into the end zone, was essentially how that must have gone. So my point being, you've got like touchdown right away based off a beneficial field position on a debatable call. You have one more play, which is just Dallas Goedert deciding to dominate a dude for 25 yards. And then you have, late game Saquon Barkley taking over. But outside of that, the Eagles offense did very little.
I do want to give credit probably to Hurts on the Goedert play. It was 2nd and 1. Packers had an all-out blitz. He checks at the line
and got it out there.
Right, he gets it out there to Goedert, and it's one on, like, it sets up the one-on-one. It was 2-on-2 on the outside, and Goedert makes do with it.
No, it was a good play to turn an aggressive all-out blitz into just something positive. But that could have been a couple of yard gain versus 25-yard touchdown, because Goedert just like dominates a dude all the way down to the goal line.
Josh Jacobs did his best to will the Packers back in, had a similar type of run, just like Goedert, what we just described, to set up the Packers for their first touchdown. Wasn't enough. I mean, they got within 16-10 after Jacobs had a big run, gets in from the 1, but the Eagles kind of have this slow, methodical offense that can eat time and everything. So they come back with a 63-yard drive to get the field goal to go up 9, 13 plays, 63 yards. It took 7 minutes off the clock. So is that right? Am I reading that right? Anyway, the Eagles are just a better team, man.
Yeah.
So I think the right team wins here. But my question with the Eagles is going to be A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley. You have these explosive playmakers. You don't need them in a game like this against Green Bay, but you're going to need them at some point, especially if 2 weeks from now they're going into Detroit. They're going to need those guys at their best.
Yeah, I mean, you can't ignore Philadelphia's defensive role in forcing those turnovers, but the big question would be, well, what happens the next time you play a game and the opposition doesn't turn the ball over 4 times, right? Like that's when you need this offense to actually show up and do more than it did in this game. Like the way that the advantages that they had in this game, they should have won much more comfortably than they did. In the end, I mean, we're 4th and 3 and Jordan Love throws a hair high. Heath can't quite get his foot down. That's they're down 9 at that point with 5 minutes left on the clock. Like that, we're down to like one play, keeping this game alive late in the game. It should have been a double-digit, well out of sight, multiple-score game. I mean, 9 points is a multiple-score game, but like it should have been well in hand by that point, and it wasn't because the Eagles' offense did not take control of the game completely.
All right, man. Anything else on this? I mean, at high level, looking at the Packers, just 2 years ago, we said, hey, they're a young team. They're going to be, forced to be reckoned with over the next couple of years. That was before. Last year, they did make it to the final 8. This year, losing the wild card round. I still think they're very well positioned for the future here, but a little bit of regression from Jordan Love here. The injury certainly didn't help yesterday, but this year, regression from Jordan Love. And a style change to more of a run-first attack with Josh Jacobs this year. It's going to be an interesting offseason for Green Bay to see how can they compete with the Eagles, the Lions, and some of the better teams in the NFC going forward.
Yeah, I don't think we really know what their trajectory is right now because they definitely didn't catch fire late in the season the way they did a year ago. They are, again, the youngest team in the NFL for the second straight year, but like the injuries were a big factor. I mean, they were basically without their top receivers. Collectively, the top 3 receivers
against the very good Eagles.
Yeah, all disappeared against the number 1 defense in the NFL. Like, if you just told me that, you'd be like, well, they're not going to get much going on offense. Like, any team. Pick any team. Like, Detroit. Take away Detroit's top 3 receivers and throw them up against the number 1 defense in the NFL. Detroit's probably still able to run the ball, and I'm sure they'd find a way to have some kind of success. But you'd be like, if they got relatively shut down, it wouldn't shock you. So, yeah, Green Bay loses this game. They turn the ball over a bunch. That makes sense. I don't know that necessarily means, they stalled or they regressed or they're going backwards and this thing isn't still moving in the right direction. I think generally they just got unlucky with injuries, particularly in this game, and shot themselves in the foot a few times.
All right, anything else on this one?
No. Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.